Alright, so the new 6-star featured is out, and this one is pretty bad. If I'm being honest, this one is pretty dang bad. The sub-featured pool is just ruining the whole thing because I think the featured batch is amazing. I think that all these characters are pretty dang sweet, but the featured characters can't really do enough to carry a pretty bad sub-featured, right? But quick disclaimer here. If you're still progressing, I would just skip this entirely. I would just go straight for basics. The featured champions are pretty good, especially Adam Warlock, Silk, Danny, and Deathstrike, and Moondragon. Like they're all pretty dang good, right? But there are just better options in the basic crystal. So I would just try for that, especially when the sub-feature pool is just very, very punishing. But yeah, let's do a quick grading of the 6-star featured crystal. And first things first, one little thing that I do not like about this is that there are a ton of 7-star champions in this crystal, like 7-star characters that are now 6 stars in this crystal. I think it's pretty annoying because here's the thing, progressing players that won't have the 7-star versions aren't going to buy this crystal. They're not going to buy it at all because they know that the basics are better for them. The people who buy this already have 7-star champions and they will get them pretty soon as well. So having the 7-star characters being the 6-star featured is just a bit annoying. Like there is Joe Fixit, there is Emma Frost pretty much. There's also the likes of Silver Surfer, Gamora, Mcoc, and some of the champions are great. I think Gamora is pretty sweet. I think Joe Fixit when Awakened is pretty good, but they weren't even the pure standouts of the 7-star pool. Like if it was Bishop or the Overseer or Titania or Hulk even, I think that'd be pretty awesome. But instead we have these characters who are pretty good but just not at the top of the 7-star pool. So yeah, that's my one complaint with this featured crystal, but besides that, let's go over the rest of them. So first we have Luke Cage, who is just a bit outdated. I would love to see a tune-up for him, but we haven't gotten a proper buff for an old character in a very long time, so I'm not really too hopeful of that. And now we have Joe Fixit, who is a 7-star, and he is the only 7-star here that does want to be Awakened, so that is a pretty nice addition, I guess. But Joe Fixit, not really a top science contender, but still just a pretty nice Battlegrounds character for sure. And then we have Sandman, who I've done a review on already. I think Sandman is fine, but he is getting buffed, so he'll be even better soon, which is perfect. He might be the best pull after the buff, who knows. And next up is Silk. Silk is just so good. She is just so strong. I've already covered her though in my last video where I went over all 6 of the featured champions, so check that out if you want to see it. But yeah, Silk is just crazy strong. Her versatility is so good. Her damage output is very solid, especially in Battlegrounds, and her utility when Awakened is just also very solid. So this champion is just amazing. She is just a great all-around champion. She has the damage, the utility, the versatility, you name it, she has it. Silk is just, in my opinion, the second best pull in this crystal. And next up we have Night Thrasher, who has just fallen off for sure. He used to be pretty cool, but he is just very outdated, and he does want high sig too, so that's just another bad thing about him. Next up is Black Widow. Black Widow got nerfed. That was pretty annoying, and now she's just pretty much forgotten. She's just a pretty mad character at this point. She does have some nice things that she can do, but everyone else just does it better, to be honest. And next up is Gwenpool here, and Gwenpool I think is still very fun to play and still has some pretty solid damage output. Of course she's fallen off, but I think she is just still very fun to play, and I think she is still just one of the coolest characters out there, man. But yeah, Gwenpool has fallen off for sure. This crystal just has a lot of old champions that fell off. That is a bit crazy. But next up is Moondragon, who I think is pretty great. I have a rank 5 6-star Moondragon, and she has done a lot for me, to be honest. She has some great damage output. She's very versatile as well because she has multiple damage outlets, which is great for just having more reach overall. She has some pretty nice utility, and she has some pretty good res to degen, bleed, and poison, and power sting as well. So yeah, overall just a pretty nice character and just really great for Battlegrounds. So if you want a Battlegrounds attacker, she will be a pretty nice rank up in my opinion. And now for the mutants. First up is Old Man Logan, who I think is just pretty and just kind of a dud here for sure. Has some things going on, but just overall in comparison to the top mutants, just does nothing. Next up is Iceman, who I think is a great champion, and I think he is the best sub-feature pool here, which is like, it does say a lot because Iceman isn't really a top mutant, but he still is very dang good. But for being the best pull here in the sub-featured, you know that the featured is just pretty right? But Iceman, pretty awesome champion, has great immunities. His damage output got a massive buff as well, and he is a great dual threat in Battlegrounds. Maybe not on the attack spectrum, but on defense can be pretty annoying overall. So yeah, Iceman, pretty awesome character, and I think he is the best sub-feature pull in this crystal. Next up is Emma Frost, who's also pretty dang solid. She's going to be a 7-star though, so if you have the selector, I think she is the second or first best pick in that selector. So 6-star Emma Frost might not be too good for you soon, but if you don't pick her, then yeah, she's a great pull. I think she is pretty awesome still, has some great damage output, has a ton of utility, and just overall a phenomenal champion. And then we have Danny Moonstar, who is just also a very solid champion. Great for Battlegrounds, has a lot of damage output and a very simple rotation, and it just gives her a ton of ease of use, which makes her very versatile, and has some pretty solid utility as well. She is a great Nick Fury counter, which is pretty rare these days, and she's great for countering Hercules. Very fun time, you gotta appreciate that, right? But yeah, Danny Moonstar, just a great champion overall. I think she is a standout in this crystal for sure. And now we have the tech, starting with Psycho Man, and Psycho Man is just a bit bad. Not a bit bad, he just is bad. He doesn't really offer much at all. He does have some annoyance on defense with his concussions and all that, but besides that, there just really isn't much about him. Just a pretty massive dud in this crystal. And then we have Punisher 299, who I think is pretty solid still. I think he is pretty nice. His power control is great. His armor break access, which gives him some nice damage output. His overdrive mechanic is pretty solid as well. Just has some nice utility bits and has some great heal block too. Has just overall a pretty solid tech kit. Just has fallen off for sure, but is still a pretty nice pull in my opinion. And next up is Dr. Octopus, who is also pretty dang good. He has some great heal block, he has some great power control as well, he has some pretty nice damage output, and he is just an absolute cheese king. So Dr. Octopus, also a pretty hidden gem and just a pretty solid pull too in my opinion. And next up is Lady Deathstrike, who is just a phenomenal champion overall. She has utility that is just made for countering mutant characters. For example, she counters Domino very well. She is the best counter to Weapon X out there, just flat out, and just has some pretty solid damage output, and longer fights is one of the best damage dealers in the game. But yeah, her heal block, her ability accuracy reduction immunity, her access to unblockable and unstoppable counter, her access to just a very solid safety net, and her great damage output in any form of content just makes her very solid in my book, and I think she is a standout of this featured for sure. And next up are the Cosmic Champions. So first up is Surfer, and Surfer is pretty sweet. I think he is just a pretty standard cosmic character, just like in the middle of the pack to be honest, and he is a 7-star, so keep that in mind if you pull him here. I just wouldn't be fussed, though he does have some solid immunities with his Cold Snap, Shock, and Incinerate. He does have some pretty good utility with the Armor Break too. He does have some things for sure, but it's just a bit in the middle of the pack. And next up is a champion who, if you're not Suida, then you probably won't care about this pull, but he does offer some things. He is a very cheesy quester on like the final boss lane, but besides that, he's just there. He's just decent. Next up is Gamora, who is also a 7-star champion, and she's great. I think she is pretty solid. Her damage output is phenomenal. She is pretty easy to play as well, so there is that. And yeah, decent pull, but if you have a 7-star version, then just doesn't matter at all. And next up is Adam Warlock, who I think is the best pull in this crystal. When you learn Adam Warlock, he is just insane. His damage output is phenomenal. His versatility is just off the charts. He can take some of the hardest fights in the game, like Domino, Rintra, you name it, he can take it probably. And has a lot of utility with his Stasis Pod, with his ability accuracy reduction immunity, and his Nullify and Stagger immunity as well. Has access to a ton of immunities with the energy protection. He has true damage, unblockable, massive fury, massive precision as well. Just has it all, man. He is just so strong. Also has some amazing control with his taunt and his Stasis Pod stun and his SP1 stun. He just is a very powerful control champion, and for being a cosmic character, that is just super rare, right? So yeah, Adam Warlock, just a powerhouse overall, and I think is the best pull in this crystal. And last but not least are the mystic characters. So first up is Loki, who honestly might be the least, so I regret what I said back there. He just offers pretty much nothing and is just a massive dud here. Guillotine has some use with the Mystic EQ cheese, but besides that, it's also just pretty okay. Mcoc is a good pull for sure. He still offers a ton of defensive value, so if you don't have the 7-star version, he is a great rank up and just is pretty dang sweet overall. Mcoc has a ton of use on defense. On attack is a bit underrated too. So yeah, overall just a pretty sweet champion. And last is Clairvoyant, who is still pretty good. I think she has some great utility with her lifesteal, her buff immunity, her power steal, but besides that, she is just missing a bit, like damage wise, and that has made her fall off a little bit, but still is a great quester, and overall still it just has a lot of utility and some great immunities too. So Clairvoyant, pretty dang sweet. And that is my review of this featured crystal. I think it is not worth it if you are progressing. It is just pretty bad sub-featured wise. There are some nice pulls there with like Iceman, Clairvoyant, Mcoc, if you don't have the 7-star version of course. But besides that, there just really isn't too much here, and it's just a bit underwhelming for sure. But the featured champions are solid at least, so there is that. And now let's open the crystals. First, some context. So Sandman is the only champion that I'm missing here, so he is who I want the most. And additionally, I have Adam Warlock at Sig 197, and that is because with that signature level, Lady Deathstrike is my profile champion, and I wanted to stay that way because I think she is just so cool. So Adam Warlock, just please know, the one champion I do not want. So first up is Luke Cage, which is fine. The sub-featured is still pretty underwhelming, so expect some pretty pulls in that regard. But next up is Lady Deathstrike, who is max Sig already, and I hope she stays my profile champion. So far so good. No Adam Warlock, but also no Sandman, so that does kind of stink. But hopefully that can change, right? And crystal number 3, just really want that Sandman. I just want to get this featured ASAP. There was Adam Warlock. Passed him thankfully for Mcoc, who I have on defense right now, which is perfect. So at the more signature levels, that is pretty sweet. Mcoc, great defender, pretty fun on attack too. And so far so good. No Adam Warlock yet. We are just chilling in that regard. And next up is Adam Warlock. The dream is dead. Man. So there goes Lady Deathstrike as my profile champion, but I guess it is what it is. It was bound to happen anyway. But it was fun while it lasted, right? It was just fun while it lasted. Now it's Adam Warlock, who is also pretty cool to be fair, so it is what it is. And last is Gwenpool, which is just whatever. So no Sandman, unfortunately, but it's fine. I hopefully can get him soon. But let me know your thoughts on this featured crystal. Who did you pull from it? Who did you want at least? And yeah, that's about it for me.